Wolfgang Serbel, the FIM, out of the way. The gates drop, away they go. Who gets the whole shot? Last time it was Stefan Everts, not this time. 99, David Villemin takes the lead. Villemin, a great whole shot. Ryan Hughes, though, right on his tail. Third place for Ryan Hughes. There he goes up the hill with the red top on. So Villemin and Hughes battling for third in the championship, first and third, and between them is that... It is Kevin Winman, I'm sure it is, the American rider. There he is, confirmation, 1:14. He's in second place. Down to the camera he comes. He is in second place, so Winman in second place, Hughes in third, and they battled in eventually Ryan Hughes beating Kevin Winman for second place in the first heat on the Palmo Honda. Well, through behind them goes Stefan Everts in fourth place, so you're looking here in second, third and fourth, reverse order of first, second and third in heat one. But out front, it's the 99 machine. And what can Villemin do about this? Well, David Villemin leading. Ryan Hughes right with him, though. And you don't sense that Hughes is going to give this one up. Second place in heat one. Can he compound that with a victory here? Right in the Frenchman's wheel tracks, though. It's 1:14, Kevin Winman. Winman recently finished as runner-up in the American Motocross Association's 250 series. And that was won by Greg Albertine, of course. Albertine racing here to 7th place in the first heat, just behind the reigning world champion, Sebastian Tortelli, who was 6th. But at the moment, it's all about the Frenchman. The flag's being waved by the locals here in Maryland for the American heroes. And Ryan Hughes and Kevin Windham gave them a really good airing for their lungs in the first heat as they chase down race leader Stefan Everts. At the moment, it's Windham doing the chasing of another European, and this time it's David Villemin. Well, Villemin only 11th on the Yamaha in the first heat. The Yamaha Motor France team will clearly be working in the interim to restore his race bike to full fitness. Whatever the problem was he perceived with it before the start, it meant a last-moment change of machine, and clearly that wasn't quite what he'd hoped for. Maybe it just unsettled him at the start. Of course, if you get caught in that group as they get away, then that can drop you right down the order. And that may possibly be what has happened to Pete Vieira and Fred Bolle, because no sign of them so far. The director not doing much of a job of showing us the field so far. I'm afraid he can only identify first, second, third, and I'm sure it was Stefan Everts in fourth place. As soon as he gives us a bit of a longer shot, well, there goes Villemin, definitely Windham in second, still Ryan Hughes in third. As soon as we get a longer shot from the on-site director, there is Fred Bolle. Well, no indication as to where that may be. In the middle of traffic. Going through there, Marnik Berverts, the number 4 machine. Ahead of him, the 37 of Mark Jones. But again, very hard to tell where they may be. They might be in the top half dozen. They might be at the bottom end of the top 20. You can't really tell from these pictures, can you? Well, several more machines coming through behind them, so perhaps not the bottom end of the top 20. They may be in the middle, bottom end of the top 10. There's Everts, so who's behind him? Well, the American picture quality, as ever, making it a little hard to read the numbers, I'm afraid. We may just have to wait until the end of the first lap to try and sort this out. It could be Greg Albertine in 5th place behind Stefan Everts. There is Ryan Hughes. Ahead of him there, 1:14. And that's Kevin Windham. And still ahead of him is David Villemin. So that's your lead 3. There they go across the line. Now we'll start to see who's next up. Should be Stefan Everts and Albertine. It is Albertine. Greg Albertine, the reigning US champion, in 5th place. And in 6th place, another rider from the US series, Takeshi Koikeda from Japan. Well, that's an impressive showing. That young man was 16th in the American series. In fact, he finished just a couple of spots behind Sebastian Tortelli, who spent half the season on the sidelines after injury. So there is the leading order then. Villemin, Windham, Ryan Hughes, And behind them, Eastwood, Tortelli, Jones, Jorgensen, Berberts, Morris. No sign at all so far of Bolle or Beira, and that's a disaster for Pete Beira. Surely now it's all over. He needs 15 points from this. He can only get that, or he needs a 15-point advantage over Bolle. He can only get that from being third or higher, with Bolle failing to score, and that means the championship is over. Well, whether Pete Beira fell in an accident at the first corner, as happened in Germany, or not, can't say. We didn't see anything, certainly. But wherever he is down the order, outside of the top dozen, that's it for Beira. Who's that gone down? That's the number 8, Michael Maschio, on the Yamaha Motor France machine. Well, no sign of anybody else involved in that. He may just have run out of road, but he's gone down anyway. Mark Eastwood comes towards us, then Sebastian Tortelli, Mark Jones. This is a thick and fast battle. Bolle 14th, Beira 22th, 22nd, I guess that'll be in English. Well, Pete Beira, the championship is over. Kawasaki's tenure on this series has ended. Villemin very cross up over the bumps there. He still leads, still leading from Wyndham and Hughes. First and second, then another couple of seconds back to third place. Fourth is very close though, Everts and Albertine, multiple champions both. And that's a great race of champions. Well, it'd be interesting to see a little bit of that. The director perhaps reasonably following the lead pair at the moment. And Villemin is under pressure, isn't he? Kevin Wyndham within a second as they jumped across the line. Hughes nearly 3 behind, and Albertine goes into 4th place. So Albertine and Everts, well, at the line, they were 4th and 5th. Nothing much to choose between them, though. And Kakeda still behind them. So Albertine and Everts, I wonder if that one's going to settle in to be a race of attrition. But the championship, I'm afraid, for Pete Beira certainly is over. And for Fred Bolle, well, he won't really need to do much, will he? Tortelli in 6th, then that group, Eastwood and Jones. The Dane Brian Jorgensen was battling with Marnik Berberts in there as well. And behind them will be Fred Bolle, and some way long behind them will be Pete Beira. We haven't even seen a flash of him, and that means that the director can't find him that far down the order. Well, there you are, running down the order again. And the leaders still holding on. Villemin really under sustained pressure, though, from Kevin Wyndham. And I wonder how long he can keep on ahead of the American, buoyed up as he undoubtedly will be by the US crowd. Villemin at the moment then in 3rd place in the points, but he has to hold off that man on the number 70, Ryan Hughes. And the Palmo Honda rider will be very fired up here at home to get 3rd place in the championship. Well, Tortelli still leading, Bolle down in the teens, Beira in the 20s. The championship is over. Bolle will win it here. Join us for more, though, in a moment. It's Kevin Widman, runner-up in the American Series on the Honda. 3rd place, Ryan Hughes on his Palmo Honda from the European Championship, or the World Championship, I guess you'd say. And the best of the Suzuki's in 4th place, or he was a moment or two ago. Greg Albertine still there, ahead of Stefan Everts on the first of the Radson Hondas. Well, Everts and Albertine's battle continues as they pull out a big advantage, and a mistake from Villemin. Villemin loses the lead. Kevin Wyndham goes right by him as Villemin comes to a complete halt, just getting crossed up in a rut. So the lead changes and the American goes ahead. Kevin Wyndham leads now the final heat of the year. Well, Wyndham finishing in 3rd place in Heat 1. If he can win this one, with Ryan Hughes having a 2nd place and a 3rd, then he will be the overall Grand Prix winner, because Stefan Everts is down the order and he's unlikely to win this one. Well, Sebastian Tortelli moving up the order ahead of Kokeda now, and Mark Eastwood, who failed to finish the first heat, is battling away with teammate Mark Jones, who also failed to finish. Two British riders on their Radson Hondas just outside the top half dozen. So Sebastian Tortelli on the move, and the man directly ahead of him now, as you watch the race leader there, Kevin Windham, is the man who Tortelli beat to the championship last year, Stefan Everts. Now, very confusing numbering going on here, I'm afraid, that Kevin Windham's shirt, as you can clearly see, saying 214 on the back. However, everything relating to him in the official scoring says 114, including, rather bizarrely, the number on the front of his machine. On the side, as you see here in the slow-mo replay of that pass, it says number 22. I don't know. You'd think a set of sticky numbers isn't too much of an investment for anybody, but there you go. However, whichever number you refer to him by, 114, 214 or 22, he leads here. David Willem in second, Ryan Hughes in third place. And that is the lead trio. And Windham certainly easing away here. Now, big cheers from the crowds there around this tight finishing section as the American rider comes round in the lead. So Hughes in third place on his Honda, Windham the leader on his Honda, the two Americans with the Frenchman on the Yamaha in between them. Then the South African on the Suzuki, the Belgian on the Honda, and behind them it should be the Frenchman on the Honda, Sebastian Tortelli, the reigning world champion. There he is, and he's being shown 14 seconds behind behind Everts. So Tortelli passed the Japanese rider Takeshi Kokeda for sixth place, and moving up the order. And here is the race leader starting to pull away. Look at this, he's already got a couple of seconds advantage, and that's going to be, I would think, 3 and a bit by the line. And if he can continue this sort of pace, he will disappear in exactly the manner that Stefan Everts did in the first heat. And what you could be looking at here is Kevin Windham on his way to victory overall in the US Grand Prix. 12th now for Bolle, 15th for Beira. So Bolle up 2, Beira from 22nd to 15th up 7. Well, Beira now getting a point, but that's no good at all. He needs to be right with this man to win the championship, because Bolle will score, and that means that absolutely certainly Pete Beira's championship hopes have faded to nothing. Undoubtedly, he will keep riding for the crowd and for the Winfield Kawasaki team, who have brought him all the way to challenge for the championship at the final round of the year. But that's all it would have been now. It's a challenge that has, sadly, for Pete Beira, faded. And it's going to be a long 35 minutes for Pete Beira now. In fact, the whole thing probably from the first corner, when he didn't get the whole shot and take the lead. I'm sure right then Pete Beira knew he was deep up against it, and whatever happened to him in the first couple of turns clearly compounded those disasters. Hughes in third, still Albertine and Everts fourth and fifth. Albertine pulling away a little. Tortelli a long way back from that battle then. Jorgensen and Berberts. And then Ryan Reynard coming up in Robbie Reynard coming up into the reckoning now. Beira up in 15th. Still David Willemin and Ryan Hughes battle, and behind them there's this huge pack. Some very close racing going on here. All right, further down the order, Leon Giesbers giving chase to this bunch. There is Fred Bolle out on his own. No sign of sighting targets ahead of him. But then he doesn't really need them, quite frankly. Bolle could pull off into the pits and pretty much watch as the title became his. Not the way to win it. Obviously, he'd like to have won it by winning this final Grand Prix of the year, to go with the other 6 that he has already taken victory in, but that's not going to happen. Not by a long shot. However, it doesn't need to. Race leader still pulling away, Kevin Windham. And the Honda rider really doing everything in his power to tear away up the field. His advantage, though, not really increasing by much. Bolle running all on his own here, starting now to catch the 10th place man. Well, all these positions that he's picking up, slowly but surely, do help him in the point standings. But it is pretty academic, bearing in mind where Pete Beyer is, and certainly Bolle must be getting some communication from the team. It's so critical to tell him just where Beyer is. Bolle, whoa, wasting no time in trying to make a move there, and puts it safely to bed. And he's going past Takeshi Kokeda up into 11th place, and Beyer still in 15th. So Kokeda there, who was in 6th place early on, dropping down the order now into 12th, and that's some sort of plummet down the order, really, isn't it? Rot set in after the first 2 or 3 laps, and he was gone. Well, Bolle now with Robbie Reynard ahead of him by some 6 seconds. And he's in a fairly close-fought battle with Bervert and Jorgensen. Eastwood and Jones been fighting in that group as well, the 2 British riders on their Radson Hondas. And they'll be looking at least to get a finish out of this heat, which was more than they managed, either of them, in the first. The other 2 Radson Hondas did both finish, Bolle in 8th and Stefan Everts on the top step of the podium. Well, Fred Bolle's championship started off superbly, winning the opening Grand Prix of the season in Spain. 2nd place in Greece, 3rd place in Holland, and then plunged all the way down to 10th place finish and his home race in France. And that was really the low point of the season. He fought back, though, on the flyaway races. He won in Venezuela and trailed home in 6th place in Brazil. Dropped again, only a 9th place finish in Great Britain. And the hopes after Venezuela seem perhaps to have been a little dashed as his season continued to scrape new lows. In Italy, he only managed an 11th place finish. But then he started to stage a remarkable recovery in the Grand Prix of Europe, finishing on the podium again in 3rd place, the first time in 5 outings. Victory followed swiftly in Belgium and in the Czech Republic, 2nd place in Poland, and then back-to-back victories again, the Grand Prix of Luxembourg and the 2nd Grand Prix of Belgium. 3rd place behind Stefan Everts and David Willemin in Germany last time out 2 weekends ago was enough to drag him back into the championship lead as Pete Byrer finished 1 place behind him in the overall standings in 4th. So Bolle's seen the highs and the lows, and really perhaps not the most consistent of seasons, yo-yoing up and down from victory to scraping to stay in the top 10, and on occasion not even making that. Well, again, the battle behind the top half dozen, Jorgensen, Berwitz, Reynard, Bolle. Well, Bolle closing on the battle for 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th. Still looking pretty close. Well, Michael Pichon retiring after 4 laps. And I wonder what kind of reception he had from the officials here. He raced at the beginning of the season for Honda North America.
Nationenstadt. Und da werden wir hier die Akteure wieder erleben. Also der Ländervergleichskampf im 14.
Picked up the 250 factory Suzuki ride. But I wonder quite what the reception was for him when he came back from the officials. Would have been a slightly interesting conversation or two going on behind the scenes. Well, Wyndham not able to run away with this one the way that Stefan Everts did with the first heat. Everts in 5th, Tortelli still behind him in 6th place. And then the battle continues behind. And it looks as though Byrer's progress is slowing. Still 3 places behind Bolle, and he needs to be, well, a dozen ahead of him. Kevin Wyndham leading his home Grand Prix, the final heat of the year. Stay with us when we return in a moment. Welcome back to the final heat of the 1999 FIM Motocross World Championships. And this is the man who has led since about lap 3. Kevin Wyndham, runner-up in the American 250 Motocross Championship. And now the leader here. Well, that's a lead he assumed from David Willemin, the Frenchman who got the whole shot and led the early going. Still holding on in 2nd place from arch-rival Ryan Hughes. Hughes finished in 2nd place in Heat 1. And trails Willemin in the championships by just a single point. They're 3rd and 4th. And the outcome of that battle will certainly decide how that particular portion of the championship is played out. The battle for victory in the series, though, looks as though it's all but over. In fact, it must surely be all over, because Pete Byrer needed to win this final heat and do so convincingly, with Fred Bolle scoring no more than a tiny smattering of points to overhaul his rival in the series. Well, Willemin, you can see 4 seconds behind Wyndham, but for him a reassuring 7 seconds now and more ahead of Ryan Hughes. Greg Albertine, the American champion, still 4 seconds ahead of Stefan Everts, and it looks like he's much more likely to pass Hughes for 3rd place as the new timings come up there. Then Hughes is likely to move into 2nd ahead of Willemin. And there indeed is David Willemin, the early leader, still not given up at all on victory here, and you can quite clearly see that. Really hounding Kevin Wyndham as much as possible. Somewhere in the trees there is a motocross track, and here are the 1st and 2nd men. Again, not an ideal corner there from Willemin, and that's lost him another couple of seconds. And that will have taken him a couple of laps to work that in terms of racetrack position. And that was exactly the kind of mistake that cost Willemin his lead early on. Further back is Stefan Everts. And he was the man who won Heat 1. And he is currently in 5th place. He's chasing Greg Albertine and trying to hold off Sebastian Tortelli. Tortelli reputedly, according to the scoring, just a few seconds behind him just a moment ago. It seems to be a fraction more than that. So you can see things very dry here at the Budds Creek course. Pretty sandy going, and that has helped keep dust levels to an acceptable level. Everts is definitely closing on Albertine. There, for the first time, I think, all race, really, is a shot of Pete Byrer. And he will be a very disappointed man at the end of this heat. It was certainly a very difficult struggle for him, a real uphill task to come here with a 19-point lead. That's almost effectively a whole heat win being held over him. And he knew that coming to the USA, really nothing but victory in both heats and the Grand Prix would do for him. And even then, he had to hope that Fred Bolle, the man who held that 19-point advantage over him coming here, had desperate trouble in at least one of the heats. And Bolle did have trouble in the first heat. The problem was Byrer didn't win it. If he had done with Bolle down in 8th place, then he would have pulled back 11 of those 19 points. And there would just be there'd be just 3 points between them, but he didn't, so all the mental arithmetic, which is paining me anyway at this stage, was out of any real context. He only finished 4th and pulled back just 5 points of that advantage. So coming into this final heat, Fred Bolle, who now is right ahead of him in the standings in the heat, had a 14-point advantage. And again for Byrer, nothing but victory really would have done here, unless Bolle had somehow fallen or failed to finish. Byrer, we didn't see it, but clearly mired down in the first lap or two in traffic. And it was a fall in the first corner of the first heat in Germany that really dashed his championship chances. Coming together with Irish rider Gordon Crockard, saw him on the deck, and with a broken line to the rear brakes, he had to complete the entire distance with no rear brakes. Struggled desperately to make it to the finish, really, for the fans who support him so strongly in Germany. But that was it, really. He came back in the second heat and fared obviously much better, but only managed to hold on to 4th place in the overall rankings in Germany. Bolle took 3rd, and the championship lead with it, and a handsome championship lead it was as well, with just one Grand Prix left to run. So for Pete Byrer, a season that promised so much. Certainly the middle part of the year was really his, much more so than Fred Bolle's. And in the end, Byrer still has just the one Grand Prix weekend to his name, and that was in Poland. Bolle with 10 heat wins, Byrer with just 7, and between them 9 other podium position finishes each. Makes that pretty even. Byrer's only failed to score on 2 occasions all year, the last of which was at home in Germany. Bolle 3 no scores to his year, remarkably consistent finishing from both men. But what really tipped the balance is 10 wins to 7 in favour of Bolle, and that is just the big difference between their seasons. David Willemin in 3rd place in the points at the moment, and looking likely to finish that way at the end of the year. Well, 6 victories for him and 7 other podium appearances. 5 times he's failed to score, though, and the reason that Ryan Hughes, who hasn't won all year and has only finished on the podium in 10 events, is so close to him is that Ryan Hughes has only had 1 no score all year, and of the leading riders, that is the best finishing record of the lot of them.
Final chapter on the final part of the course here. We'll run the
Pete Byra, as you can see, all on his own at the moment. No sign ahead of him of Fred Bolle. He clearly can't see him. And keeping up your motivation to really ride on the ragged edge at this stage must be very difficult indeed. Just the lap board to guide him. And his last lap didn't help much. 3 seconds slower than Bolle. And on each of the others, he was between half a second and a second slower than his rival. So for Byra, he really is not even going to be able to have the slight moral uplift of catching and passing Fred Bolle in the closing stages. Just to bring you up to date with the lead group, Albertine in third now, past Hughes. And Stefan Everts hot on his heels. So Ryan Hughes dropping down the order. Things looking much safer now for David Villemin for his third place in the championship. The Yamaha Motor France rider. Second place here. And the camera's still showing Pete Byra. Byra with rivals closing in behind. May not even finish as high as 11th. Wyndham still leading from David Villemin. Albertine and Everts third and fourth. They've both now passed Ryan Hughes, and Sebastian Tortelli in the top 6 again, now ahead of Robbie Reynard and the Belgian rider Marnik Berverts. So the fastest man in practice, Kevin Wyndham, leading the US Grand Prix. Join us for more in a moment. American rider Kevin Wyndham leading the final heat of the 1999 FIM World Motocross Championship. And there is the man who will swap the #1 plate for the current #5 that he holds. The Radisson Honda rider Fred Bolle in 10th place at the moment, but looking certain to clinch this year's championship. His only rival for the title in 12th place behind him, Pete Byra. And that is not good enough for Byra to overhaul the 14-point advantage that Bolle brought into this final heat. So Fred Bolle racing round on his way to the championship. And in just a few minutes' time, when he leaps across the finish line, he will take that accolade. And the Americans now looking strong in practice and now starting to look strong in the second heat. They finished second and third in the first heat, and now first and third. No, beg your pardon. Considering Greg Albertine to be an American, since he spent so long in the States, but of course he's not, from South Africa. But still, they have Ryan Hughes in 5th place. And just looking outside the top order there, Fred Bolle still in 10th place. Sebastian Tortelli just outside the top half dozen. And the director struggling to find anything to show us at the moment other than Fred Bolle. Must surely be a battle going on somewhere that he could make a stab at. However, looks as though Stefan Everts' attempts to catch Greg Albertine haven't yet borne fruit. Pete Byra now starting to slide down the order. Jan Giesper's Mark Eastwood may yet cause him trouble. Be interesting to find out, if we can, from Pete Beyer at the end of the Grand Prix, quite how he saw his day. Certainly the first heats didn't go too badly for him. I wonder what happened in the first couple of corners in this one. Unfortunately, the cameras trying to cover all of the riders in the field make life slightly difficult, because obviously you can't follow every one of the 30 starters, and generally it's found that people want to know who's leading as opposed to where all the tail enders are. Fred Bollé stands on the stage at the end of the year to collect his award. I'm sure he will have a very wide range of emotions going through his head, and I wonder what he will consider to be the highlight of his year. Maybe back-to-back wins in Belgium and the Czech Republic, when it all seemed to have run off the rails for him. The only real highlights between the Grand Prix of Holland and coming to Belgium 6-7 races later was a strong finish when he won the Grand Prix in Venezuela. And it all seemed to slide downhill again precipitously. Perhaps the German Grand Prix will be the real turning point for him in his own mind. It was where he came in pretty much level with Pete Beyer, just 3 points behind him, and with 2 races left. It was a head-to-head battle, and he won resoundingly in Germany. Sure, Beyer had a problem, but them's the breaks. You can't win in motorsport if the luck goes against you, and every talented rider knows that just sometimes you do need the breaks. Beyer slipping further down the order now. Bollé happy to sit there in 10th place. Ahead of him, some way ahead, is the Dane Brian Jorgensen, but he won't worry too much about him. Some way behind him as well is the rest of the field. Jean-Sébastien Roy from Canada is the next man up. Pete Beyer now dropping into the clutches of Gordon Crockard, and it was contact between the two of them that cost him probably the championship title, you'd have to say, at the German Grand Prix. Well, with the final 2 laps now being rolled out by the race leader, Kevin Windham, backing up his 3rd place here in the first heat, with what looks on track to be a resounding victory here in the second. Stefan Everts, winner of the first heat, should come home in 4th place, and that means that he will take 2nd place on the podium. But it looks as though we're going to have an American winner of the US Grand Prix. Kevin Windham certainly laid the groundwork for that in practice. Quickest in practice, quickest in qualifying, quickest in the Sunday morning warm-up. It only started to come slightly unravelled for him in the first heat, where he couldn't stay ahead of Ryan Hughes to challenge Stefan Everts, and he had to make best with 3rd place. For David Villemin, first heat finish of 11th place, and that allowed Ryan Hughes to catch right up to him in the championship standings to just 1 point behind. But Villemin now holding on in 2nd place as they go on to the last lap. And Kevin Windham needs just to make sure that he keeps the bike upright and moving at a reasonable pace to guarantee himself victory here. And that perhaps beating the best that the World Championship has to offer in his home Grand Prix. Might be some compensation for finishing as runner-up to Greg Albertine in the American Motocross Championship. It will certainly show that he has the ability and the talent to match anybody in the world. You can hear the crowds, you can see the crowds applauding him and cheering him on. This is what they wanted to see more than anything else, perhaps. Most of these fans here at Budds Creek. It's an American victory, and it is going to be a resounding one in the second heat. He is, in fact, motoring away, or has motored away, at pretty much the same kind of margin that Stefan Everts managed in Heat 1, and there's certainly no doubting the ability of the Belgian rider of the number 2 Radson Honda. And I'm afraid nobody could argue this weekend that Kevin Windham and his Honda have been anything other than impressively paced. The fans cheering him on at pace for the last time. To the closing stages here of this second heat of the American Grand Prix. Late afternoon sunshine, dappling the track, shining through the trees, and he starts to showboat for the crowd, and well he might do. Well he might do indeed. Last few corners. And Kevin Windham going comfortably past slower riders on his way to victory. And this big crowd around the start-finish area behind the pits cheering him on. Here he comes, Kevin Windham, to win the second heat. So to the light of himself, his Honda team, and undoubtedly the American crowd. And by my mental arithmetic, I think that makes him the winner of the US Grand Prix. Well, there on the Suzuki, number 108, Greg Albertine. And he finishes in 3rd place here. Salutes the crowd, the reigning American champion, newly crowned AMA 250 motocross champion. And there is Stefan Everts, from one champion to another. Congratulations. Well, they had a good battle through the race. Everts not able to really get in touch with Albertine in the closing stages. But here is your winner. So Kevin Windham then wins the heat and the Grand Prix. And further back, this is the man that will take the championship on the number 5 Radson Honda as he crosses the line in 10th place. It will guarantee and confirm his World Championship for 1999. The championship winner from France, Frédéric Bollé. And just look at the emotion there. Fred Bollé is the world champion. And if you think he's emotional, wait till you see Pete Byra afterwards. Kevin Windham then, the race winner from Greg Albertine, shown as USA. Well, in that case, I want to know what happened to David Villemin in the closing stages. Looking down the order, can't see him there either. Have I been mistakenly having him in 2nd place all the way through? I'm afraid with just a pencil and paper to score with, that does occasionally happen. However, no doubting who the winner is. A bit hard to see, but no doubting who the world champion is either. Well, Fred Bolle swamped by a horde of English fans as he came across the line, and now with the Radson Honda team. These guys, of course, very used to winning the championships with Stefan Everts, and now they have a new champion. David Willemin finishing in 6th place there. So we'll have to see after the overall classification just how the World Championship has been decided in terms of 3rd and 4th places. 5th and 6th also relatively close as they came into this race. So a chance for the riders to complete their lap of honour and show their approval and their colours to the crowd. And let's see who is first to appear on the podium. We'll try and hang around long enough to get a chance to hear from the winners. You can see the crowd, and you can hear the crowd making their way round to the podium. Well, there is the championship standings then, 442 to 424. Pete Byra, the runner-up, and David Willemin holding off Ryan Hughes for 3rd place in the championship by just 4 points. Stefan Everts, 11th in the championship after just 3 Grand Prix of point scoring. That's pretty impressive riding from him. So there are the final standings then. And what will the reigning champion be doing in the year 2000? Will we see the #1 plate in the World Motocross Championship? Well, Fred Bolle, I'm sure, will have an awful lot of celebrating to do in the short term. And in the meanwhile, let's take a look at our podium finishers. Well, the US fans delighted that the winner of the US Grand Prix is indeed an American rider. There is Stefan Everts on the right-hand side of the picture, and good to see him again back in action and on a bike. But Kevin Windham there in the centre. And the Palmer Honda rider, Ryan Hughes. Well, the caption having them in the wrong places. Ryan Hughes on the left and Stefan Everts on the right. That is your Grand Prix podium. So Kevin Windham, the winner of the US Grand Prix. Ryan Hughes in 2nd place and Stefan Everts in 3rd. For the World Championship, perhaps decided by that first lap fall in the first heat at Germany a fortnight ago, but confirmed here. The new world champion for 1999, Frenchman Frédéric Bolle. Pete Byra finishing 2nd to him. David Willemin in 3rd place in the championship, ahead of Ryan Hughes.